a Monday edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Pretty rainy afternoon, soggy afternoon here in Metro Atlanta, but it is college football season 24/7, 365. So the sun is always shining on our beautiful and sometimes beautifully dysfunctional sport. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about the dysfunction that reigns in our sport all over the place. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And I'll tell you why in just a little bit. But a reminder, if this is your first time checking out this show, hey, you know what? Share it with your friends. If you're watching, if you're listening, you already know how to do the podcast thing. So others might not. Please share it with them. Give us a 5-star, give us a 1-star, and tell us what you don't like about this show. We can certainly try to accommodate your suggestions into future episodes. And I say this every episode as well. You know what? Go listen and watch everybody across the Believe Network. Go listen and watch Late Kick with Josh Pate over on 24/7. Go listen and watch Andy Staples on 3. All of those guys, Solid Verbal, Cover 3, they all do great jobs. They are all tremendous. And in this day and age of traditional media, you don't get what you want. You turn on SportsCenter right now, it's all about the NBA playoffs. I don't care about the NBA playoffs. I don't think you guys do either. But in the new media world, you have the ability to pay attention and get your content about college football in a variety of different ways. And I encourage you to do that because sometimes you're not going to like what I say. Sometimes you're not going to like what Josh says or anybody else, but you might like it occasionally. So it's like a buffet around the new media world. Go get that prime rib. Go get that croissant. Go get that mac and cheese. Go get that dessert. Do all of it. Why not? It's there for you. It's nice. You've done it before, so go do it again. This show brought to you by BetOnline. It's your number one source for all things sports this summer, including Major League Baseball and the NHL playoffs and golf and everything that's going on this summer. Go to betonline.ag. They've got all your latest stats, player updates, news, all of that stuff. You can get the latest odds, lines, player props, all of that can be found over at betonline.ag. You can do it from your mobile browser, Safari or Chrome. You can do it from your desktop, your tablet. However you surf the web, betonline.ag is there for you. BetOnline, where the game starts. And so we're going to start with the BCS. And for those who have not listened to me on SiriusXM or my previous podcast, SEC Smothered and Covered, or wherever, watch me on CBS Sports HQ back in the day when I worked for CBS, or even Bleacher Report back in the day. You know my stance on this. The BCS was the perfect postseason system for college football. Would it be perfect for other sports? Absolutely not. But for college football, it was gold. It was pure gold. Everything about it made college football great. Every single thing about it. Because let's take a history lesson. Let's go in the Wayback Machine a little bit. No conferences are created equal. A lot of these conferences were created, in some cases a century ago, because of academics. They were academically aligned. The Big Ten still takes pride in this. Had nothing to do with athletics. That's why you have a team like Vanderbilt in the SEC. Because to an extent, these conferences still do take pride in academics. The Big Ten more than the SEC, but that is still a big part. The student part of student athlete does matter to a lot of people. Not everybody, but a lot of people. So if all conferences are created differently, they have to be judged differently. And that's what the BCS did. That is what the BCS did. It took all of the conference affiliations out of it. And I know people will say, well, it's so biased toward the SEC. Now, I'm old enough to remember when the SEC was an afterthought. When Ohio State and Miami played in the national championship game and Georgia's just like, whatever. Like, that's the thing that actually happened. So conferences didn't matter. Look in 2004, Oklahoma and USC. Auburn was undefeated, got left out. Last time I checked, Auburn was a member of the SEC and is still a member of the SEC. And for the Auburn fans who don't like this, this show because of what I'm saying right now. I went to Auburn. I graduated from Auburn. I grew up an Auburn fan. My dad hadn't went to Auburn. We had season tickets. Everything about me is Auburn, and yet I'm okay with what happened in 2004. What do you want the national champion to be? You want it to be the best team in the country for 4 months. You want it to be the best team in the country for 4 months. It's about excellence. All national championships, all major championships. The goal is to determine excellence. And the BCS did that. And the beauty of it is that it took different angles, took different pieces of fruit, right? You got an apple over there, you got a lemon over there. You put it all together, and you have the BCS rankings. The computers got way too much heat because the computers actually took the human element, the human bias out of it. And what's the problem now with the selection committee? Everyone hates human bias. So if you hate human bias, you got to like the computers. If you hate the computers, you got to like the humans. What else is there? Because we're not going to do it with automatic bids for conference champions, or we shouldn't do it with automatic bids for conference champions. Because getting back to what I said 3 minutes ago, not all conferences are created equal. The BCS did its job. And the most important part of college football, and it's something that I know people will try to say the regular season will matter more in the new era. No, I don't care about bids and buys. I don't really care about bids and buys. I care about storylines. I care about intriguing matchups. I care about how the landscape of the sport develops over the course of the season. Because that ultimately lets you know which team is excellent. It has nothing to do with conferences. All right? If the landscape of the season evolves to a point where you have a 2-loss LSU in the national championship game, fine. That's what the season gave you. There are no automatic pieces of the puzzle you have to put together because excellence in 2007 included a 2-loss LSU. In 2004, it was 3 undefeated Power 5 teams. It's fine. Now, should Auburn have had a chance? I don't know, maybe. But I would much rather leave a team out than have a team that's not worthy get in. And why? Excellence. We should favor excellence over access. Because when we get in the business of access, then we lose the ultimate goal of what the national championship should be. And that is rewarding excellence. That's all this is. And so I look back at some of the biggest games of those regular seasons. A lot of them were in September. Some of them were in October. Some of them were in November. Like the triple overtime game. Was it triple or double? Whatever it was when Arkansas beat LSU. And then LSU won the SEC championship game and magically got into the BCS championship game. The fact that we didn't know what every week meant. We didn't know that, hey, you know what? A loss in week 2 could absolutely kill you. Or that win in week 2 that we didn't really pay attention could become the biggest win of the season. That's a feature, not a bug. Why? Because it kept the regular season important. It made the regular season the best regular season in all of sports. The unknown was a good thing. The unknown made the sport great. But we wanted access. I didn't, but everybody wanted access. Why? Because of money. It drives everything these days, as we've seen over and over and over and over again in all walks of life. It's about money. And the way that college football decision makers realized they could make money is to make it more like the NFL, because the NFL is the most successful sport in our country. And TV revenue shows that. But I liked it a lot more when college football wasn't like the NFL, because I like storylines that develop that have nothing to do with the national championship. Sure, I pay attention to the national championship. I love the race for the national championship. I love the race for the meaningful postseason. It is still interesting, but it's not why I fell in love with college football. It's Peyton Manning leading the band. It's Colorado in the Rashaan Salam era. Those things were awesome. Those things were great. Utah making the Sugar Bowl and beating Alabama. TCU making the Rose Bowl. Heisman Trophy winners coming up out of nowhere. Steve McNair. That's incredible. That's awesome content. Are we going to get any of that in this new era? Absolutely not, because all the focus is going to be on those 12 teams. Well, I still will cover the college football playoff. I think a lot of people will as well, but it's not what I enjoy most about this sport. It's everything that comes with it. And the national championship is a part of it. But I like game day going to the University of Houston when Kevin Sumlin was there. I like game day going to North Dakota State. I mean, hell, the biggest thing that game day did this past year was go to James Madison. Was James Madison in the college football playoff race? No, they weren't. Those things matter, and those things were what the sport was built upon. And it's sad that it's getting chipped away because decision makers are following the almighty dollar to try to make the sport look more like the NFL. So how do we get the BCS magic back? That's a question that I think a lot of people don't ask, because you're not going to go back to 2. You're not going to go back to 4. In a few years, when they go to 14, you're not going to go back to 12. And you will have automatic bids. All right. So basically, we're trying to figure out which at-large teams deserve to get in and which automatic qualifiers where they should be seated. Okay. That's not what I like to talk about, but it is what it is. So how do you do that in a way that makes it intriguing? Well, you have to make the regular season matter again, because bids and buys aren't going to do it. So you bring back the BCS computers. You have a group of people who also have equal power, and you put it together, and those are the college football playoff rankings. Everybody wins. The human bias is taken out when it comes to the computers. You will have human bias with the selection committee, but you need to alter that to a system where these people have no affiliation with any of these teams or any of these conferences. Because, I mean, look, you're going to do, even if you don't admit it, even if you try not to, you're going to do what's best for you. Right? So here's how it should go moving forward. And it's not, this is a pipe dream, but this is how it should work. You have your BCS, you have your selection committee, 50% both ways. We're not going to sit here and do the coaches poll or the Harris poll or the AP poll and have it divided up in thirds. We're going to do 50-50. All right. And so the selection committee will be made of people who are full-time employees. That's their job. The committee will be made of people who are full-time employees. They're loyal to the paycheck. They're not loyal to a school that they work for. They're not loyal to where they played. They're loyal to the dollar bill, because that's the reason we're in this situation to begin with. Everybody's chasing the money. So if everybody's chasing the money, you need to have people who understand, hey, you know what? I want to chase the money too. I feel like I can provide the right kind of content. I want to work for the selection committee and get paid by the selection committee, because loyalty to your family, loyalty to what puts food on the table is far more important than where you played college football or what school you work for. I went to Auburn. We talked about this earlier in the show. I went to Auburn, had season tickets. My dad went there, graduated from there, worked there. But if I'm getting paid by an entity, I'm sitting there looking around going, okay, if I screw this up, I might get fired. If I bring in my childhood loyalties, I'm not doing my job correctly. If I look at that little piece of paper that's right up there on my wall that says Donald Barrett Sallee II, graduate of Auburn University in mass communication, Bachelor of Arts, if I bring that into my committee room and say, hey, look, I went to Auburn. Guess what? Auburn should get the benefit of the doubt, and they should make the college football playoff and just be national champion without even have to play. I get fired. I'm loyal to my family. I want to provide for them. So if I'm a full-time employee of the college football playoff selection committee, that's exactly what I'd be. So what do these people do? Well, they make radio appearances. They provide content. They do a show every single week, even in the off season. They're public figures. Are they media members? Maybe. Some of them probably would be. You would be considered a media member if you had that job, no matter where you came from. So that's how this should be structured moving forward. It's not going to be. I hate that it's not going to be, because it seems like at the top of this college football administrator food chain, it's like some incestual rich family that just orders takeout all day long and smokes their pipes and gets in their limos and drives off and does whatever the rich people do. And that's why we should have the BCS, because it took a lot of that out. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And it made the regular season great, because it put an emphasis on excellence over access. And I know what people will say. Hey, you know what? It works at the group of five, or at the FCS level and Division II and Division III. Okay, yeah, if you want to think that, okay, but you'd also be ignoring the massive financial gap that exists in FBS. That all schools and all conferences are not created equal. At those levels, yeah, you're probably going to be similar. Pretty similar, right? So yeah, it works for them. Does it work for professional sports? Yeah, it does. But those are structured to have more parity. Last pick in the worst team in the NFL gets the first pick in the NFL draft. The worst teams in the NBA get put in the draft lottery, and the Hawks win the draft lottery, which they'll screw that up and draft a quarterback or something. But those leagues are structured to have parity. We may want that. You may want that in college football. I'd love to know how you would do that. That's not going to happen. So in this world where people will say, and you probably might think this, hey, it works everywhere else. I would say, yeah, it's easier for it to work somewhere else, but still, I don't like those structures. I say they don't work. I want excellence to be a moving target in every sport, because not all seasons are the same. So I think the BCS did it right. Certainly for college football. Something in professional sports I think would be fine too. I can tolerate it at those levels, but I think they could follow a BCS formula and it would actually dictate who the best teams are, instead of having like a 500 team playing in the NBA play-in game or a sub 500 team making the NFL playoffs. Like you're not excellent doing that. I don't know if folks will say, well, what if they made a run in the postseason? Well, maybe you should have won more games in the regular season. It would be a lot easier. And don't start with me on the March Madness stuff. If you're trying to compare college football to college basketball in terms of how their postseasons are structured, you're an idiot. And you're being disingenuous. Completely different sports with completely different structures, with completely different seasons, and completely different physical demands. So that's why I love the BCS. That's why I miss the BCS. That's why I want the BCS back. It was the perfect postseason system. It favored excellence over access. It kept phenomenal storylines in college football intact and promoted them. And we don't get that now. At least not as much as we used to, which is disappointing because for all of us, not all of us, for a lot of us, that's why we fell in love with the sport. It's the truth. And for me personally, you know what? The national champion is great. I love the fact that we get to celebrate a national championship and a national champion in January every single season. It's great. It's phenomenal. Those players deserve that recognition. A lot of other players deserve recognition, and a lot of them are on teams that aren't very good. So it's sad that we're losing that. And I think some of you are starting to come to my side. Some of you realize, and because I've heard ever since the 12-team playoff was announced, and certainly when the 14-team proposal was announced, there are a lot of people saying, oh God, we got to stop this. I know social media isn't real life, but there are a lot of you who agree with me a lot more than was the case 5-6 years ago. And so the purpose of this show, this episode, is to try to bring more of you to my side. Not because we can change things. We can't change things. It's not going to change. But because I think we all need to recognize what college football was, what it is, and what it's becoming. And it's sad. It really is sad. That's what we get. It's what we get. That will wrap it up for this episode of College Football Smothered and Covered. Hey, appreciate you guys checking out the show. Share it with your friends. Give it a 5-star. Give it a 1-star. If you don't like what I said in this episode, absolutely tell me in the comment section, in the reviews on Apple, or the comment section on YouTube. If you like what I said, hey, join the party. Let us know. I've conceded the election. I know that I'm not going to win this discussion. I understand that I have no chance of winning this discussion. But I can still say it, and I can still have pride in what I think is right. Until next time, have a great weekend, everybody. This show brought to you by BetOnline.ag. You can go check them out, BetOnline.ag, where everything begins, where you can get the latest and greatest odds, lines, all that stuff. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. Have a great day, everybody.